Everyone, welcome and thank you for attending today's IBM Middleware User Community webcast. My name is Kelsey Tipshrainy and I'll be hosting today's webcast. Our topic for today is low-code process automation. IBM Blueworks live process models become executable business process applications with AGYS BlueFabric. All phone lines are currently in listen-only mode. There will be a question and answer session towards the end of the presentation. However, you may ask a question at any time during the presentation using the questions window located in the control panel. Also, look for a form link in your chat box and feel free to continue any discussions after the webcast in the forum. Tomorrow, we will have the recording and slides of today's presentation available on the IBM Middleware User Community website for you to access. You'll receive a follow-up email with a link to those archives. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. We have joining us Jonathan Weiner. He's a partner with AGYS. Thank you, John, for joining us today. The floor is now yours.
Thanks, Kelsey. First of all, thanks everybody for attending our webinar today. Again, my name is Jonathan Weiner, and on behalf of myself and my company and Andre Ventilla, who's with me, I want to welcome you guys to our webinar on BlueFabric. BlueFabric is AGYS's low-code process automation platform that's running on IBM BPM in the cloud. What I'm going to do is, what I would ask you to do is, as you have questions as we go along in the webinar, please feel free to type them in the question box. All right, we will address them at the end in as many as we can. So I want to start out telling you a little bit about the company. For those of you who aren't familiar with AGYS, we are a Swiss registered company that's been working in the process automation space for almost 14 years now. The company currently has client implementations in 14 countries and a network of partners who we work with across Europe, North America, and the Gulf countries. Our relationship with IBM goes back almost as long as the company. Over those years, we've utilized many elements of the advanced IBM technology stack to implement our client solutions. And they include things which you're probably familiar with, such as IBM BPM, IB as an integration layer, used to be called Message Broker. We go back almost 11 years with Message Broker. ODM is a rules engine, pure application system, and these are just some of the technologies. Last but not least, we always thank IBM because we're very grateful for the support and endorsement we receive from them along the way. In terms of our clients, our portfolio spans both public and private sector domains. It includes industries such as energy, manufacturing, aviation, and banking. Having said that, there has been one common theme across all our projects, that being the high level of operational, financial, and competitive impact that they were designed to achieve. To give you some examples, the first large process automation project that involved our organization was working for a European oil company where we implemented 15 different solutions that essentially automated their entire downstream supply chain. It was running 5,000 transactions a minute across it, integrated with about a dozen different systems and running millions of dollars a day of wholesale and retail gas transactions. There was another project we had done for the largest energy company in the world, E.ON, that was involved in application of over 100 stages. It had 50 different business roles interacting with it. It was heavily integrated with SAP, and that was for managing the life cycle of their major capital projects. And last but not least, we've developed over 15 different complex solutions for the commercial and consumer banking sectors, focused on customer attraction or retention, credit origination, payroll processing, and these types of areas. And that's a large part of our focus as an organization today. This historical focus on complex solutions, to a large degree, serves as a launch point into Fabric, or more so the question of why we created Fabric. And to set the context for what you're going to see today, you know, I would like to relate a story of something that took place about 4 years ago. We were involved in a proof of concept for an organization for banking concern that today is actually our largest client. And we were doing a POC for a loan origination application. The thing went very well. The room was filled with about 15 different people representing corporate and retail banking and operations and IT. And at the end, one of the gentlemen raised his hand and asked, more to the CIO than to the rest of us, when he could get in line or how he would get in line to have his operational applications implemented. The CIO was actually he kind of chuckled and he said, first we have to decide we're going to select this company, and then he said we're going to sit down and we're going to evaluate priorities. And the reason I tell this story is here we are 4 years later. We've implemented 7 very big solutions for this bank, but to this date, this head of operations is still waiting for his applications to be implemented. And this really comes down to the fact that, you know, when you take a look at process automation and the thought process that goes into it, there's essentially 3 areas of consideration that come into play for organizations. The first has to do with the platform itself and decisions around the tool set and what's the right way for them to go as an organization. All right, these tool sets are not inexpensive. They range depending on the configuration and what you're looking to do with the application. They can range from anywhere from $500,000 to over. We've seen ones as high as $6 million when it comes to taking a look at the total technology stack that they need to implement them. The second consideration is always around the build. And with that regard, initial questions as far as who's going to actually go and develop these applications and support them. Is it going to be internal teams from the organization that are going to be trained or utilized? Are you going to hire an external company like AGYS? And while looking at this area, you know, people quickly realize that to implement complex solutions, it involves a lot more than just training people to do BPM coding. All right, it involves architects, integration specialists, business and technical analysts, testers, and project managers, and more. Last but not least is something we call process lifecycle management. And unfortunately, this was something that we realized, that we've seen that a lot of organizations really didn't pay attention to for many years, but it's become a big part of the focus these days. And that has to do with the fact that the day you go live or you go into production with an application, with a significant application, you hope on that day, and I stress hope, that the functionality of the application drives the operating profile of the organization. But from that day forward, most of these organizations and operations are not static in nature. On the contrary, most of them are very dynamic. And dynamic meaning that the business rules that surround the way companies run their operations, external pressures and internal pressures from a compliance perspective, delegation of authority, rules governing these processes, even the roles and the people that interact with them change over time. And these changes result in these things that many of you have probably heard of called change requests. It's not unusual, and hasn't been unusual for us to talk to organizations, to sit down with organizations to tell us about applications that they're running that currently have anywhere from 300 to 400 change requests in the queue for a single application. So when you consider all these different factors, traditionally what's come down is that the automation focus has typically been on a smaller set of application areas where the operational, financial, or compliance value was easily justified, or in terms of, or was able to justify the investment. What's largely been ignored, though, since the beginning of this process automation landscape are the hundreds and sometimes thousands of operational processes that incrementally may not provide high value, but that collectively define the entire governance framework of an organization. And it's with these in mind that we developed BlueFabric. And BlueFabric, from a basic perspective, is a low-code development platform that's designed for the rapid automation of low to mid-complexity business process applications. It runs on IBM BPM in the cloud, and when it's combined with Blueworks Live, extends the value of modeling to that of automated process governance. Before we start our demonstration, I want to talk a little bit about the differences between native BPM development and development with Fabric. And unlike you would think, you know, most vendors would probably approach this by saying, what do you gain from implementing a solution like Fabric? I prefer to look at it as what you eliminate. And what you eliminate starts with the need to hire, train, or allocate specialized developers. From there, the focus is on eliminating coding across the board as it applies to UI development, rules, data models, the application-specific integration pieces, database setup, and more. Because it's a tool that focuses on building applications through configuration, all right, it also eliminates cost and resource overhead associated with process lifecycle management. In other words, changes that you make over the lifespan of applications are lower cost and more rapidly automated and implemented. Necessarily, it reduces long and protracted testing cycles, and last but not least, long drawn-out technology evaluation cycles, which ultimately delay in automating these different areas for operational value. Okay, so from here what we're going to do is we're going to jump into our demonstration. All right, and when we go through this demonstration, we're going to try to illustrate to you virtually all the major capabilities of BlueFabric. We're going to show you how you import processes from IBM Blueworks Live, how you set up roles and users. We're going to show you how you can use Fabric to establish rules. We're going to create user interfaces, data models. We're going to launch an application where you can discuss some of the value-added functionality around it. So our demonstration at this point starts with IBM Blueworks Live. And just from a foundational perspective, with Fabric, Fabric is designed to help extend the value of Blueworks Live by turning these important process modeling efforts into executable business process applications. And what you see in front of you, many of you may recognize, is a Blueworks process model representing, and this one represents a process for changing the official use of a property on a mortgage. So the first thing I'm going to ask Andre to do is to actually go ahead and export that model into Fabric. Okay, at this point, we have in front of us, all right, the same process visually illustrated, also capturing the relevant attributes. The color coding designates whether it was a user input stage, a decision stage, or a system stage. This is also importantly the reference point. This diagram and this UI is the reference point from which we create all process elements. At this point, we can either move forward or we can modify the process on the spot. So Andre can actually take some of the widgets on the left side and he can actually extend on the process, modify the process as he chooses. But at this point, we're going to have him erase those. And once we've settled on our process model, the next thing we want to do is set up roles for the process stages and assign users. So Andre is going to select a specific stage. And as you can see at the bottom there, it's actually pulled a role from our Blueworks model. That role was customer support representative involved with that. And if Andre can either leave it at that, or he can go ahead and he can add new roles associated with that. So at the bottom, he could start fast typing from this list of roles that he has in the system, or he can add roles on the spot. All right, and he can select additional roles if he wants and include it there. From here, naturally, what he wants to do is he wants to add users who are going to occupy those roles. So he's going to go down, he's going to select customer support representative, and he's going to pull up the directory of the different users who he can access and assign to that specific role associated with that specific task. All right, again, the objective with Fabric is through pop-ups, drop-downs to make it intuitive for the user, something that's graphical, that's as a result is highly consumable. So the user would go ahead and they would do this for each stage in the process. They would go and they would assign the roles and they would assign the users. As the next step, we're going to show you one of the features of Fabric that we'll call it an advanced use feature for those who want to utilize it. But that being the ability to build advanced business logic into your process application through the use of rules. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to set up a rule. And to do that, we're going to select an approval stage, the one that you see in front of you, called Review Request. All right, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add an approval level. All right, so Andre is going to create a first level of approval. All right. And it's important to understand that Fabric allows the user to add as many approval levels as they wish. So you could have ultimately 3 levels of decision making that take place based on the occurrence of different conditions or scenarios that appear in the course of processing. All right. For this level, we can set up approval time and what happens if it expires. All right. And from here, we can go ahead and we can configure as many rules as we choose for that specific level. The first rule we're going to set up, we're going to give a name to, and we're going to call it a rule around what happens if there's a low property value or conditions for low property value. And within that rule, we can set up as many conditions as we choose. All right, so as you see, these rules, these conditions and rules are built with intuitive drop-downs using standard rules nomenclature. All right, again, we're trying to stay away from code. We try to make this as intuitive as possible. Right. After setting up the various conditions or possible scenarios, the next thing would be to decide on what happens when that scenario occurs. Our options include changing of the routing, setting up of a notification, or changing another attribute of the stage, such as a deadline, a task priority, a task name, and so on and so forth. In this case, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a new assignment and say we want it to be sent to a specific person. So Andre's going to go ahead and he's going to enter a person and he's going to say if this condition occurs, we want it sent to that person. More so on the right, we give them the ability to assign for that individual specific rights. So they can have the right as an evaluator, they can have the right as an approver, they can have a right as an overrider. All right, so Andre's going to go ahead and he's going to save it. While we're here, I'm going to ask him to quickly set up another rule around a different condition, which is a high-value property. And he's going to save that rule as well. He's going to give it a new assignment. So as you saw, one of the things that we saw before is Andre had the ability to assign it to a specific user. He could have assigned it to a team. There's different ways he can assign that specific routing. Okay, before moving ahead, we need to do one final thing, and that's to map the possible decisions from the approval stage to the process flow. So basically, as a result of the specific decisions that are made from the individuals performing these tasks, we've got to go ahead and we've got to map it to where that's going to take it in terms of the flow. And he's setting up and he's giving specific directions to it. And we've gone ahead and do that. So Andre can set up rules for different stages within the system. You can set it up for routing, you can set it up for approval, and this is a very powerful feature of the BlueFabric platform. Okay, so we've got our process flow developed, defined, we've set up the roles for it, we've set up the users for it, we've set up rules surrounding or conditions surrounding the routing and surrounding approvals for different stages. At this point, what we want to do is we want to go and we want to set up UIs. All right. Now, UIs can be developed from scratch, or they can be taken or modified from a growing library of customer templates. All right. In this case, for the purpose of this demonstration, we're going to pull one up to modify it for the specific purpose that we want to use it for here. Andre is going to select the UI. And the UI appears. All right, on the right, we have our UI. On the left, the tool menu that we can use for building or modifying that UI. You can see it includes controls such as text boxes, radio buttons, check boxes, and drop-down lists. All right, within this UI, what we're going to do at this point is we're going to add a new field by first selecting its location and then specifying elements of the field. We're also going to add a tooltip, and tooltips, as you guys probably know, are common help features, are a common help feature within process applications that are used to guide new users in their work. Again, when we built BlueFabric, it's important to understand, came from over a dozen years of process automation experience in building applications for clients and understanding the common functionalities that we're looking for to make these applications more agile, more consumable, and more functional for the organization. All right. So the next option is properties, and I will go to that. And there we can designate that if a field will share space, whether it's read-only or whether it's mandatory. There's another tab at the top called Display. All right. And we can actually designate the form factor here, depending on whether the UI will be accessed from a mobile device, a tablet, or a desktop. You're also going to see two tabs at the top, two headers called Get and Save. All right, and they refer to the data source from which we will reference and store information that's utilized by each application. And we're going to cover that more in a moment when we speak about data models. Processes that require some level of integration with external systems. We've worked, again, to simplify the integration process. We work with standard APIs, and configuration around them, again, is designed to be relatively direct and explanatory. Okay, now that we've modified our UI for purpose, we're going to go ahead and assign UIs to each stage. Andre is going to go back to Process Live Manager. Okay, so now we have the UI assigned to each stage, and the next thing we're going to do is to create our data models for the UI. For those of you who aren't familiar with the term data models are a series of data elements that essentially have common characteristics that are referenced and stored in the system. For example, customer data would include information such as the customer name, their address, their country of residence, information such as that. To create one, simply a process of drag and drop and adding through various pop-ups. So Andre just drags over, he's going to create a new data model, a new data set. All right. He's going to call this one property details, and he's going to enter in things such as elements such as zone, do another one for address. And these will later be mapped to the specific UIs, and what we saw before was the get and save elements. With governance being a central objective of process, we typically have UI elements also that are structured to define possible inputs, and we typically refer to them as drop-down lists or drop-down menus. Like data models, drop-down catalogs are easy to create and modify, all right? And so in this case, I want Andre to call up an existing one. All right, and if he wants to add other elements to it, all right, all he has to do is click the plus button, the add button. All right, he's going to enter a new element. He can create a code for it, and he's going to save it. And these drop-downs, again, are going to be mapped to specific UI fields, all right, for access by the users in the applications. So at this point, we're almost ready to launch the process. The last thing we need to do is to specify a role with the rights to launch that process, and then go ahead and do so. And in this case, we're going to select our customer service manager. And that person can now go ahead and launch the process. And here's our UI. It's been launched. I'm going to ask Andre to go ahead and start filling in some of the elements around it. He's going to enter there from the list from the drop-down list the new property use. He's got pop-up calendars that he can enter. He's going to list a reason for the change, the usage change of the property. He's going to specify if there's a branch pickup. He can actually send an email at this point. All right, he's going to go down to that new field we created called zone, and he's going to enter a new zone for it. In addition to the UI, we have common process features such as audit trail. All right, it's going to give us a list of all the actions. Each of the users of this process will have access to audit trail, and they can see what activities have taken place to that point. It also, Fabric gives you the ability to manage documents, upload documents, and also assign comments from each specific user participating in this process. Okay. BlueFabric also comes with a lot of value-added types of functionality, and I want to illustrate a couple of them now. The first of them is called Process Live View. So I'm going to have Andre go back to the applications, and he's going to call up a live view. He's going to select his application. And what he sees now is a process live view that was created for this application, and PLVs are automatically generated for every application that is built with BlueFabric. So it's not an extra step that you have to do. It's not something you have to figure out. It's something that's automatically generated. And PLV is a real-time graphical and text-based representation of every process instance or case running through that process. All right. The purpose of BlueFabric is to allow process owners to be able to quickly look and identify bottlenecks and roadblocks, all right, and to be able to tactically then go in and address specific issues where they occur. So at this point what you see is you see a bunch of hexagons. The one that overlaps the process stage tells you how many instances exist in that stage. And then you see color-coded hexagons, which essentially are defined by time-banded KPIs for how quickly that instance is moving through, or those instances are moving through that stage. Those are fully configurable by the user, so the organization has the ability to go in and work on performance, KPI performance for continuous improvement, and also to identify where there are problems. So in this case, Andre, if he clicked on one of those, it would list the instances that exist in that stage in that specific hexagon. He can call it up at that point, and he can understand everything that's going on in terms of that specific process instance. PLV is something that our organization, Process Live View, developed approximately 6 years ago. And we've implemented it in virtually every application that we've deployed for a customer. We have implemented PLV. It's considered a very high value piece of functionality from a customer perspective and a process owner perspective. The breakthrough on Fabric was the ability to have them automatically generated. Next thing I'd like to show you refers to document generation. And as you know, document generation is a common element of any governance process. All right, and BlueFabric has functionality that makes this effort, again, powerful and at the same time intuitive and straightforward. So what I'm going to have Andre do is go ahead and he's going to call up a specific template. What you see here in the BlueFabric document generation is it essentially lays out for the user the ability to create new documents using common, familiar UI widgets you see on the top, as they would use with Microsoft Word, but to go beyond and to upload images for use in that, but to go beyond that. And that's essentially to turn a static document into a dynamic document that's automatically being created while this process is being executed. So what you have on the left-hand side is data variables that you're going to map and simply select that are going to be automatically inserted in the document. All right, so at this point, if we went ahead and we generated that document, it would automatically go into that specific case, and it would, when we clicked on it, it would create a document for us that reflected the various data inputs that were reflected in that specific case. For those who are familiar and have done automated PDF generation, again, this is a high overhead piece of common process applications. In some of the bigger applications that we do, we will produce anywhere from 12 to 15 of these for a single application because of the importance of documentation and document generation and process governance. Okay. That pretty much completes our demonstration, our basic demonstration of BlueFabric. Before going to Q&A, I want to switch back to the presentation to cover a few more points. And those start with the value of Fabric. And BlueFabric was truly designed to provide as a tool that will provide cross-enterprise value. It's important to understand, while many people look at BlueFabric and how intuitive it is, and how it essentially enables line of business people to get more hands-on involved in the development of their applications, the idea of Fabric was really delivered to us by our customers and customer representatives in the IT parts of the organization. And this goes back many years. We've had a half a dozen customers on the IT side have asked us if we had tools like this to help them push things forward. And for IT, what it represents is an increase in their ability to essentially accelerate the volume of applications that they can deliver to the line of business while giving them something very important that they require, which is platform control. And with this, the ability to continue to focus their spend and their precious resources on the big applications that require their care. For senior management, Fabric was designed to eliminate many of the bottlenecks associated with delivering broad operational improvements. All right, and therefore to help companies more rapidly drive increased organizational profitability and competitiveness. For line of business stakeholders, all right, Fabric simply represents a way to rapidly automate for operational value, to help people drive transformation within their specific departments and business units and functions for the purpose of facilitating improvement and continuous improvement and change. And last but not least, Fabric opens up a whole other set of possibilities for partners who are looking to deliver new and increasing types of value to their customers. This value is going to be further expanded this month when we launch the BlueFabric Marketplace. All right, and the Marketplace, in short, is going to be a place where Fabric clients can pull down process applications that have been placed in the market for the purpose of rapid consumption and cost-effective consumption. Right? We always, over the course of the years, AGYS has worked diligently through some of the platform management tools, some of the development tools, some of the testing tools that we've developed our own IP to essentially accelerate and simplify application development and deployment. But we know ultimately the ultimate objective is not to develop, the ultimate objective is to consume. And the idea of the Marketplace will be to create an environment where our fellow IBM BPM partners and AGYS partners can publish their best-of-breed applications for sharing and value across the entire Fabric community. To close out our presentation before we open it up to questions, we are offering a 2-week free trial of BlueFabric, and those interested in seeing if they're eligible can either contact Blue 2.0, a representative in North America, or AGYS directly if you're located in Europe or the Gulf. I saw that we have some participants from Central America. Feel free to reach out to AGYS as well. In addition, any organizations involved in our process automation community who are interested in providing BlueFabric to their customers should contact us directly. And last but not least, I know we have participation from IBM employees on this call. A lot of individuals asked to take part in it so they could learn about Fabric, to see where they could provide additional value for their customers and their prospective customers. And for those individuals, please feel free to reach out to us at AGYS, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that we can. And at this point, I'm going to open the session up to questions. So if Andre, give me a list. All right, the first question is what type of support is provided by training, is provided for training. And customers have access to multiple resources, including tutorials, users manuals, webinars, and support from our specialists. Also, you can purchase additional training to help you set up and design your application if you need it. And for more details, please feel free to get in touch with us on that. Okay, second question. All right, what type of data is supported? You can define data structures, and maybe Andre can talk about that.
Yeah, well, you can create data structures that are specific to your needs and your user, your UIs, and they're basically data types as Boolean, strings, integers, dates, decimals, and attachments. Yeah.
Okay, one of the questions, again, I think we covered it. Can it support document upload during the process execution? Yes, during process execution, the user can choose the upload document capability, and which will add the document to the process instance. Another question, does it allow customization of automatic email notifications? And again, Andre, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, you can basically define templates for emails, and you can leverage all the values from the data models to basically make a dynamic template and use that to be sent to users or even customers through SMS or emails.
Hold on, scroll down, Andre. Data from UI for system.
I think we can.
And next, what's the next one?
Which one?
Yeah. Talks about, go ahead, Andre. One of the question is, what level of complexity can be automated? Basically, what level complexity can automated processes be used?
Because as we know, most IBM BPM end-to-end processes are very complex. Yeah. Basically, this is targeted as a tool as being the low to medium complexity. So, of course, we're not trying to compete with native IBM BPM development, because, of course, those are the common IBM BPM processes developed in IBM BPM natively, and we're targeting the ones that don't get to be developed in IBM BPM natively because of the effort to build them and to maintain them and everything. So we're not looking to target that complexity. We're looking
to go farther. We still do native IBM BPM development for what we call high complexity applications. All right, and if you have questions, specific questions on any process, and I like this question very much, and you have one in mind, please feel free to get in touch with us to discuss the process you're talking about, and we will tell you whether we think it's a Fabric process or whether it's better developed on native IBM BPM. How about this one? How implement relevant Blueworks? We believe the question was how important or relevant is Blueworks in the context of BlueFabric? And the answer to that question is that we think Blueworks Live is a tremendous tool for modeling organizational processes. We've seen it used to all kinds of level of value within organizations, and that's why one of the big things we're looking to do here was essentially to take all this work that companies have done and to be able to extend that work and to extend its value through its integration with Fabric, all right, through its assimilation to Fabric. Having said that, yes, you can develop processes. You can develop your processes. Without Blueworks Live, you can develop them within Fabric.
Okay. Yeah, there's I think there's a couple about regarding integration and to what extent you can integrate with other, let's say, systems like ODM and DMS and so on. One of the questions is, I mean, more questions are related to ODM. So all the rules that you've seen that we define there are what we think they're, what we call them as process-specific rules. So it wouldn't necessarily make sense to keep them in ODM only if they would be reused across the organization. And if, for example, you want to leverage any kind of rules from ODM, that's where APIs come in. So you can basically call any kind of rules from ODM as you would call them from BPM right now. So you basically select the API, you fill in all the data mapping, and then you can map the response to an action or even to a field on the UI. Also, regarding the DMS integration, is basically the same. If, for example, you want at the end of the process to store a generated document, you can basically integrate with that DMS, whatever DMS that is, and send the document at the end. Also, you can send also the metadata that was used to generate that document, so you don't have to OCR it and then get some error rate on that one.
One of the questions here, Andre, is would it allow different layers of tasks?
Oh, I think there's there's another question similar to this one. Is I think let me just find it. Yeah, well, it was more related to the end user experience and how they would use BlueFabric. So besides starting the process besides starting the process, that's the only time that you use that dashboard. They wouldn't see any kind of the options that we shown here to import the process and basically do the UIs. They would only see the dashboard to start the process. They wouldn't even have the live view and the live manager. Basically, after you start the process, you get normal tasks as you would in an IBM BPM native process, and you'd use the inbox, basically the work, to do all the tasks. So it's not there's nothing different from that point on.
Yeah, integration VM. Covered
yeah,
that?
I covered that. Yeah.
Okay. Smartphone?
Yes. Yes. If this can run on a smartphone. Yes, it can run in a smartphone. By default, the UI will is responsive. In certain cases, if you want a certain layout, you can basically override the defaults and specify for each field what's the percentage that's gonna take from the width of the UI and so on. So you can basically do that. Another question was about the same thing, about the UI responsiveness. Okay. We have here.
Question was, what environments and features are provided with the purchase of BlueFabric? All right, so BlueFabric customers, Andre, you just want to, okay, they're provided 3 environments: dev, test, and production. All right, and all pricing packages include the common features such as that you saw today: the business process designer and execution, the UI designer, the rules. They're all encompassed in there.
I think we asked this. I think we answered this one. Let me just, okay. If the product is HTML5 compliant? Well,
the question is the product HTML5 compliant?
This is well, this is funny because as we developed it, yes, it is compliant, but I don't know even if the IBM BPM portal is HTML compliant. So I wouldn't actually worry about that. Okay.
Somebody, by the way, it looks very nice. Thank you very much.
This one? Yeah, I don't think so. No. So where is the business data from the UI persisted? If it's in the BPM database, as a business process instance data, or a separate database. So all the data that is persisted against the data model is not in the IBM BPM database. It's basically on the BlueFabric database. We are not leveraging the persistence of IBM BPM in BlueFabric processes.
How about this one? When it was downloaded from Blueworks?
Yeah. So there's 2 questions. So when we are importing from Blueworks Live process, what was that imported to? So we basically keep all the information from Blueworks Live, and then we add all the information that we need to make it runnable from BlueFabric. It's basically still an XPDL in the case of what we exported. And then the second question was, do the attributes not come over from Blueworks Live? Does documentation come over? So here we'll basically, we take over everything that is being exported from Blueworks Live. In certain cases, Blueworks Live doesn't export in the format all the attributes that you can basically fill in into Blueworks Live. So, like for example, documentation or some other I don't know, priority and what action you should take and so on. Those are not exported in a format, so we cannot actually leverage them in Blueworks Live. But that might change in the future if the Blueworks Live team will start to add more info into those.
How do I edit an existing flow? Okay, and that's, you've edited, I think, just to review, you access Process Live Manager. All right, you choose from your list in the pop-up, and you can go ahead and if you have the rights associated with it, you can go ahead and you can make the associated edit. If you have the rights to edit, you can go ahead and edit.
I think there was there's another one on how do we authorize or restrict business users to edit modified processes. So when I was trying to select a role who's going to be allowed to start the process, there was also additional rights, like having to view. Basically, that was to view the analytics of the process, and then to write, basically to modify the process. So if I select certain people to add those roles, they're going to have access to those functionality. If If I don't, and they're just an initiator or just associated on the workflow, they're not going to have any kind of options to modify the process or even see the management features. I think we have only 2 minutes left.
One other question I have is somebody's asking about the marketplace community and how they find out more about it. If you want to join the community, all right, and upload some of your applications for potential consumption, get in touch with us directly at AGYS. You can use the number below that you see in Europe and get in touch with us, and we can review with you what's involved with that.
Yeah. There's another question. I think it's a follow-up on the Blueworks Live API. If we try to bring those attributes over with using the API. Well, we looked at the API, and because we wanted to do a similar integration with what exists in the process design in IBM to basically bring over the diagram directly, and we found out that there's some certain attributes that were very important for us that were missing, and we kind of saw that the API was, especially on the export features, there was less attributes that you would find in the UI of Blueworks Live. So we kind of, for that moment, we kind of looked away from the API and only used the export features from the actual UI. Now, I know that they're improving the API and they're adding additional things throughout the versions, and we will clearly take another look on the APIs when we get the chance.
Another question just about functionality. Does it support automatic assignment of tasks?
Yeah, that's basically on what you've seen with rules. You can basically define rules to the extent of sending it to certain users only in certain cases, or even use basically UI inputs to route the task to a certain user, like a selected user. I think there was 2 more questions, and one of them was so do you have version control, and what will happen to processes in the older flow? This is similar to what happens in IBM BPM, where the instances that started on a certain snapshot will, if you don't migrate them, they will basically finish on that version of the flow. It's the same with us, without the migration part. And I think the last one is, can you import processes from any solution that you export in XML? Yes, basically if you use any other tool that exports into XPDL, we can leverage that that type of format. And I think we're out of time and out of questions.
I think that's about it. Again, if you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us, or if you're in North America, reach out to the good folks at Blue 2.0. All right, and we'll do our best to handle them as quickly as we can and to provide you the information you need. So having said that, I want to thank everybody for taking the time. I know for some of you it was very early in the morning. I know for others it's very late in the day. And we look forward to speaking with you in the future about BlueFabric. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John, and thank you everyone for attending today's webcast. Again, we will have the recording and slides available tomorrow in our webcast archives. You'll receive a follow-up email with a link to those. And as you exit, please take a few moments to fill out our post-event survey. This helps us improve future events. We appreciate your feedback, and this concludes today's event. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.